Sometimes you just don't know how hard it is to do a podcast or a live stream and not look unprofessional. Anyway, welcome to Generation Movie on Friday afternoon. We're here to do some quick reviews. Joining me today, as always, is my good buddy and my best friend and my movie buff buddy, Rich Drees. How you doing today, my friend? I know you're movied out right now. You're
I've been, well, let's see. I was on set for a week working another person's project, having a great time out in the middle of nowhere. And when that becomes available to see, probably in a year, I'll let everybody know about it then.
But that means we're in Lake Erie. Where in Lake Erie were you?
Mostly it was on some big, enormous private hunting grounds and stuff. But it was beautiful, beautiful. It was all beautiful except for the days it was cold and rainy.
Yes, because
it was about half the week.
Yeah, about half the week. But you also saw 4 movies. We can't talk about.
Yeah, I got home on Monday. I've tried to catch up with a bunch of stuff. Megalopolis, Wolves. Yeah, I forgot to mention to you before we started. I saw that too. Watched that as well.
I didn't
Joker,
get to that. It didn't fit.
Saturday night, and I did a critic screening last night of Conclave. So
Conclave is getting interesting buzz. I know you can't talk about it yet.
I don't believe I can, but I will have my review in about 2 weeks when it screens at the Philadelphia Film Festival.
So we're here today to talk about this. No, not this. I'm sorry. That was wrong. We're gonna talk about that.
Hold on, I gotta go watch that. I'll be right back.
We're here to talk about this.
That I did watch.
Yeah, that I did watch. That's an interesting one. So we're here to talk about Joker Folie A Deux. I'm gonna breathe, Rich. I'm gonna try to think about that. Movies are, movies are joyful. Movies inherently teach us about ourselves and teach us about different things. And sometimes they inspire, sometimes they scare, sometimes they, enlighten. Sometimes they make you feel wistful and romantic. But if a movie is a joyless, miserable slog, which are the words I'm using right there, joyless, miserable, slog, a 2-hour and 18-minute movie that felt like it was 6 hours, Rich, because I wasn't invested, I wasn't moved in any way. Like I don't. How am I off on joyless, miserable slog? I should have put them out of order. Am I wrong?
Not too far off. I would add frustrating, simply because I could see some of the ideas that they were trying to get to. They just weren't getting there. It frustrated me to no end. Are we going to reference other musicals? Because here's a overhead shot of some colorful umbrellas that made me think of something like Umbrellas of Cherbourg. In that animated piece,
there's a series of
the
posters.
Opening.
Yeah, the animated
the series of posters and everything, but the Chaplin poster was a musical.
Pal Joey, right?
I do want to call out that animated opening was done by the French animator who did the great film Triplets of Bellevue from several years ago now.
It's a very good opening.
Yeah,
it's also one of 2 things in the movie that's
Triplets. If you've never seen Triplets, track that down and watch it. It's fantastic animated film.
It's one of the only 2 good things in the movie, and even that doesn't, as a cartoon, doesn't have a point. It's all over the place, as much as the movie is, and it's still one of the more enjoyable things. I was trying to go through in my head. First off, we as film critics and we as people who watch movies all the time, and we as people who can recognize talent or look at talented people and can marvel at them. I marvel at the talent of Lady Gaga. I've listened to her albums. I've listened to her Tony Bennett albums in particular. I've watched her specials. She is a gifted, talented, creative musician, artist, whatever you want to call her. I've never seen her more underutilized and undervalued for what she brings to the table in her film career. She hasn't had anything like this where she's in it and it's kind of just it reminds me of like the times they used to cast Madonna in the 80s. If they had a movie that wasn't gonna go anywhere, but they cast Madonna because Madonna brings something to the table.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where Lady Gaga can't get out from under the weight of the script that's thin and like it's as gaunt as Arthur Fleck is in this movie. It is bone thin, and that's another thing. Like Joaquin Phoenix doesn't look healthy in this movie. He makes me nervous for the actor. It makes me nervous for the actor. And
fall over and just break a hip.
This experiment, this Todd Phillips experiment. Like I had an interesting theory. I don't know if you agree with it. We'll talk about it for a moment so everybody can listen. I think Todd Phillips, this movie is maybe a reaction to the $1 billion reaction that the original Joker got, that everybody loved the character and everybody loved Joaquin Phoenix and he won an Oscar and they loved that he by the end of the movie, became the Joker. I think this could be a reaction. It's a theory. It could be a reaction that he basically says, you enjoyed the first movie? Really? Because that's not what I was going for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that character that you think is cool and that you like, and I'm going to immediately put him back to exactly where he was at the beginning of the movie before he became cool and what you liked. And then I'm going to repeatedly drive a bus over him until he's nothing that you recognize as the character. He's nothing that you recognize as the performance that was like the build-up performance. Then he breaks out and he's the Joker and everything's cool. I'm going to back a bus over that. And I'm going to back a bus so hard over it. I'm going to make it a musical. So you, with your DC shirts on the first night, you have to sit through a musical, even though that I've watched musicals and don't necessarily understand how musicals work. Musicals, I was thinking about even the saddest musicals, Rich, are in some way joyful, like something like La La Land. Yeah. Or sad musicals like The King and I, where, Yul Brynner dies. Like, I mean, there's joy to them, even in their sadness, the sad music.
Yeah. There's an early reference with an overhead shot and some colored umbrellas that reminded me of Umbrellas of Cherbourg, a great, beautiful French film from the 60s that's a musical. And that has a really bittersweet ending that just leaves me in tears every time because it's so wonderful. But that movie still has some joy in it. It's the young love, and then lives take them on different paths, and then they reunite later and realize what they missed out on. And so that one shot was like, oh, is this where we're going here? No,
this is cool. This could work. It's colorful. It's a definite color shift from what he's made of Arkham, right? And then the movie is just this. It's misery. It's miserable. It looks like it's miserable. It was miserable to film. It looks like it was miserable to write. It looks like it was miserable. It certainly was miserable to sit through. I don't know who this movie is made for. I don't know why this movie was made, except for the fact that the original grossed $1 billion, right? And like, we might have an Elseworld thing going on. Like, there are two parts that. There's one part in particular that works the best, and I want to give props because it was the only time in the movie where I was moved in any conceivable way. And there is a segment of the movie where Arthur is on trial, and there is a trial moment, and one of the people that is brought before the trial is Gary Puddles, who is, of course, the dwarf or the little person character from the original that he viewed one of Arthur's first murders. And it is it's an incredible performance of,
oh my God.
It's a really great moving scene that is immediately destroyed. And I'll get that in a second. But Lee Gill is fantastic in this sequence, and it's a really great scene. That he basically talks about how scared he was and how like Arthur, Arthur was one of his only friends at work, and he was one of the only people that did make fun of him, and how he really liked Arthur and how he didn't have to do what he did, even though the guy was a bully, and how terrified he is now because he's attached to Joker / Arthur, and it's moving. He's scared, and they have this great sequence. And then Rich, they cut to the back of his chair, and he's sitting on a phone book, and it's like, why?
Because he's short. Get it? Oh, fuck you, movie.
Yeah, fucking bastard. That's it. Yeah, I was sitting there and I'm like, you don't need it. You don't need it. We know he's short. We know he's gonna have something that helps him so he sits in the stand right. Like, I don't need, especially after you have this actor who's crumbling to pieces on the stand. Like, that is the kind of directorial choice or script choice or whatever choice it was where I think everybody involved with this movie had their head on backwards. Everybody. Like, even the choice of songs is like they're favorites, but they're picked for these obscure moments, and then they're like you think they're gonna lead to something and they never do. Like, they, when the Saints Go Marching In gets used a lot for some reason, when it's not a song that anybody wants to sing on a regular basis or sing along to. It's not something you hear at karaoke. And, you have Lady Gaga, who can go through this entire catalog of songs she's done with Tony Bennett, or Tony Bennett songs, or all these songs. None of them get picked. They're all these really obscure songs you'll recognize because maybe you were listening to your mom's record player when you were a kid.
I was going to say, I didn't think them as that obscure as you're making them out to be. But, again, there's a 10-year gap.
They're not nearly as intrinsically classic as they could have been, Rich. If you're trying to make an illicit jukebox musical, you don't pick songs that are just maybe standards, but not, something that hasn't been on a Bublé album. That's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense or no? It's just like, so at that point, my theory kind of kicked in as I was sitting there watching everybody squirm and just like look at their watches and just, please get me out of here. Also, the theater was dead last night. I have not seen the theater this dead since, I don't know, since, I'm trying to go back. April, March, when there was nothing coming out. I haven't seen this theater this dead. The theater I go to is a very busy theater, and it was there was 4 people on last night, 2 behind the stand, a ticket taker, and a box office person. That's it. That's the list. And there was nobody there. Like, it only made $7 million last night. I think this is a tanker fire that, like, I just don't know, man. I want to give Lego credit because he made me emote for 3 minutes during that scene, and that's the only thing I came out of this movie caring about it all. And maybe the animated sequence at the beginning that reminded me of the loony. I mean,
there was another sequence like right before that when Zazie Beetz comes back as the neighbor and kind of gives, I just thought he was nuts, and I didn't want to get involved because I was getting really harassed at work. I lost my job. I had to move because of being involved with all of this. And honestly, we could have lost that scene. It's just there to be, hey, she's back. Because I think the scene with Puddles is the better of the two versions of that scene. Both of those scenes do the exact same thing. And the one with him does it much, much better, I think. Much more dramatically and everything. Even with them undercutting it.
Right, even when they undercut it, and they do undercut it, like it's better because he actually comes across as completely terrified, and that his life has crumbled since this moment. That he doesn't trust people and all that. And she comes back and she's kind of like, "Yeah, I knew he was a fucking nut. I just didn't. I wanted nothing to do with it, and now I'm part of this TV movie." And like I said, the script beats are off. It's thin. It's thin throughout. You know, we have quasi Shawshank, uh, you know, guards that are played by great actors. That's the other thing, Rich. You know, not just the Lady Gaga thing. Steve Coogan is wasted. Brendan Gleeson is wasted. Everybody's wasted.
You can't waste Steve Coogan and expect me to like your movie. Sorry.
But it's because it's you know, Steve Coogan plays a reporter, and it's not even an interesting scene. It doesn't even like it doesn't even get off the screen. It should be this electric moment where, you know, this guy's basically fighting with the lawyer beforehand. He's like, oh, I want to call him Joker, and you know, but you know he's not the Joker. He's Arthur Fleck, and you know, and then you know it ends, and it ends on a weird abrupt scene, and it just kind of like the movie is dead in life. As there's also a sex scene that's like ungodly, uncomfortable, and awkward in all the worst ways. Like not in a cool like sometimes the awkward things can be great.
Yeah.
But this one looked painful. It looked like Lady Gaga was going to break him. I was concerned for Joaquin Phoenix. He needs to eat a ham sandwich immediately. And as
I never knew the Joker was a two-pump chump, but you know.
But he is. That's the thing. That's the other thing.
It kind of makes a sense, but you know.
It does make sense.
Overall,
well, this Joker is. You don't think the real Joker. Like, that's the other thing. I was trying to come up with things like, you know, we've had this character is this character's won 2 Oscars, right? And is also responsible for the single greatest actor's contract in the history of film, right? The Nicholson contract where he said, I just need $1 million and I need 60% of anything ancillary profits that have to do with my character. $75 million later, the single greatest movie contract in history. I mean, there are others that are close, but that one is the one where you go, he was smart. He was smart. That Nicholson. You know, Ledger won an Oscar. My wife laughed at me last night when I came home disappointed. She goes, "Nobody's gonna ever beat Lee. Hey Heath, so why did you even go?" Like, and I was like, you know, you're right. Like, you're right. I mean, someday we might get a Joker that, like, I have very high hopes for Barry Keoghan. Right, I have very high hopes. Especially after Saltburn. I have very high hopes. But this character, this particular Elseworld version, right? This particular take on the character is one, like, there are 2 horrible takes on the Joker. And this is even though it won an Oscar, this one has jumped to number 1 on my list. Because even the horrible Joker from Suicide Squad is closer in the realm of the character than this Joker, right? The musical doesn't work. Like, Gaga is wasted. Everybody is wasted except for Lika, right? Yeah, everybody is wasted. It's virtually the same movie. They put them back in the same spots. I actually think, again, my theory will always be going forward, because I'm never going to see this movie again. Joker was one of 2 movies I had never seen more than once. This will add to the list, because I will never see this movie again. I will never be able to find a way to justify myself 2 hours and 18 minutes of misery, because I go into a movie, I want to enjoy it. I want to look at it. I want to see how it's crafted. Like, I have other ways. Like, sometimes I just enjoy movies, and then other times I can break down and be like, I enjoy the craft of it. even the craft here, Rich, is off.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of beautiful shots. I mean, and I remember looking at stuff in the trailer going, are we going to be talking about this for cinematography maybe this year during
Something
award
like
season?
this? Something like this?
Well, not so much that, but there's other stuff in there that I thought was like some really great stuff. And I'm hoping that, you know, I want to maybe if I get a screener of it, I will throw it on in the background and just glance at it occasionally to like look at stuff like that. But I remember thinking at one point in the middle of this movie that I'm like, what is this movie supposed to be about? Is it a commentary on the legal system? No. Is it a commentary about, you know, a relationship? No. I mean, at one point I saw what looked to be like a setup to like, okay, this is in like the 1980s, Gotham, so no social networks, obviously.
Right.
But it kind of reminded me the Harley, well, Lee, as she's being called here. That's a terrible idea. And Arthur Fleck relationship kind of reminded me a little bit of a parasocial relationship where she saw him as kind of like an idealized figure in the media,
like a media obsession, like a media obsession movie.
And so she worms her way into like that almost oh hell to draw a really thin comparison, All About Eve. I know you want to. That's a terrible. I mean,
it's the only thing you have. I got it. Moving on.
This possible comparison possible. And I was like, oh, this could get interesting. How are we going to explore that? Oh, we're not. We're not going to explore that.
Right, because they do the phone book. They do the phone book to that too. They phone book that too with another choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so I think maybe it was created, again, the theory I'm going to take out of this is that Todd Phillips in his mind said, even though Joker made $1 billion, was critically lauded, was nominated for 11 Oscars, right? All these things. The people he made the movie for didn't get the movie, right? So they didn't.
Yeah.
The people who are maybe considered incel, or people who are like, having trouble finding women, or people like all these different things who watched that movie and said, "Hey, it's great. He gets it, and then he becomes the Joker, and he has power, and I love that character." Maybe Todd Phillips said, "That's not what I was trying to do. Trying to show you that sometimes mental illness can overtake our rational thought, or something bigger that made the first Joker better, right?"
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, "Is it as good as the original?" I'm like, first off, I didn't like the original, but secondly, it's not even close in terms of like, it's so sporadic and so so paper thin and so goes back. Like, my thing is, it takes the character that we established. He goes on television, he shoots Robert De Niro, who deserves it, by the way, right? Who, like, for the context of the movie, he is a terrible human. He's a bad person. Arthur puts a bullet in his head and moves on, right? He becomes the Joker. It's a weak character getting his power and becoming, crazy and going off the deep end. This movie forces him back to reality so much that all of the little, like, the little things, little pieces that made him into Joker for the end of the first movie, by the end, Rich, they're chiseled all the way. They're away. They're gone. They're nowhere to be found. So, like, maybe it's a movie where if Todd Phillips is reacting to, like, sometimes something is a success and you sit back and you go, I don't want that to be a success. Like, I can't believe that's a success. That's at least, that's something I didn't even think it was that good. And then it becomes the thing you're known for, because that's what's happened to Todd Phillips, right? Todd Phillips is now the $1 billion director of Joker. He used to be a guy that made film comedies. that made a ton of money, and now he's the Joker guy. Not necessarily good, but they made a ton of money, Rich, and now he's the guy that made.
I'll admit, I am not a fan of Hangover, and Hangover 2 and 3 are just awful. I mean, I sort of get where some people enjoy the first one. The second and third are just variations on a bad thing.
Money grabs, reckless money grabs. But there are people that enjoy them, and to be honest, watching those movies, you at least feel that they had some fun on set. You get a feel that there was some life there, some humanity there, that is not like it's not present. Like that's the thing. How do you have a musical that doesn't have humanity to it, that doesn't have joy or any, like even when they're singing the songs where they're trying to bring the house down, she fakes early that she can't sing, right? She's singing in the video, the trailer, the Hallelujah, come on, get happy, so she has to act like she can't sing, and then when it goes to the musical sequences, she's of course fucking Lady Gaga, and then you sit there and you go, okay, but even those sequences, like Joaquin Phoenix looks like he's angry to be playing second fiddle to her. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, he does a tap dance that's like soulless. When was the last time you had a musical, Rich, where you had a soulless tap dance? Soulless. No humanity. Nothing. It's like his tap is supposed to be like, it's supposed to be inspirational. It's supposed to be amazing. Like you watch a movie like White Nights, or you watch a movie, that a tap, like with Gregory Harrison. You know what I mean? And this is like, it's tap dance, but it's like, and it's just,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when they first announced that it was going to be a musical, and then they backtrack on the musical idea, which made me just shout at liar, liar, pants on fire, Todd Phillips. It's not a musical. It's a movie where the people who sing their break into song to express their innermost feelings.
That's what a musical is. That's a fucking musical, buddy. That's what happens in musicals. A La La Land, the beginning is all these people in a car, and guess what? They're upset about being in the car. They're in it. Like, that's what movie musicals are.
Yep.
So they got the mustard out.
Nice deep cut there to Buffy. I like that. But so I was excited that they're going to take a big swing. And I love when directors take big swings.
Big swings
when they
cool.
don't play it safe. And I was like, oh, cool. This could be something really interesting. And it turned out not to be, unfortunately.
But big swings are, you're right. Big swings happen, and big swings need to happen. But for a big swing to actually work, it has to be, your heart has to be in the right place. Right? Yeah. Like Villeneuve, Denis Villeneuve taking his shot at Dune. Heart's got to be there. It's got to be there for the whole thing. I just feel like Todd Phillips is like, I'm sorry I'm being considered the director of Joker. How can I erase this from my resume forever? How can I make a movie that everyone will hate so much that I will never get asked to do a DC movie again? I will also never have to talk about Joker again. Because if a sequel comes out and destroys the original film's legacy, I don't have to talk. Think about that.
And I was thinking about that, but I was also thinking about big swings, and I know you haven't seen it yet, but Megalopolis is an enormous swing. It's Coppola going like this with the baseball bat, just constantly just whiffing it around, and it's crazy, it's messy, it's insane, it's probably way overproduced and directed, but it has heart. It has a heart to it. He wants to say something, and you can tell he spent the last 50 some years planning out what he wants to say. 45, 50 years planning it out. And it runs the gamut of everything from like 9/11 imagery all the way back to silent film techniques. And it's bananas, but I love it because this is Coppola just throwing it all out there on the field. Whereas Joker is just, I'm gonna piss off the fan base, I guess. You know, it
again,
just didn't work.
But I don't know if it's just pissing off the fan base. I don't know if it's just there's something to it, Rich, where there's just so little joy in this film, and even when you get like the action is choppy, you never get a room to breathe in this movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
You don't the theater was completely silent last night. Sometimes you go to a movie and if you're watching a horror movie, people are giggling because they're nervous or holy shit, what's happening? You could have heard a fucking pin drop in a 300 seat theater last night, and everybody was just like, I talked to one guy before the movie, and this is a true statement. He said he was there for the 4:00 show, and he said, and it's a recliner seat theater. He said, I bought tickets for the second one because I fell asleep during the first time through the movie. And I'm like, why the fuck are you staying here? Like, why are you staying? He goes, well, I still want to see the movie, but the recliners were so comfortable. They should be illegal. And I said, no, if you fell asleep during the movie should be illegal. Like, it's not the recliner's fault. It's Todd Phillips' fault. And that's the thing. I think we're going to hear after this.
I appreciate that guy wants to give the movie its due, but I think the result of him falling asleep in the middle of it might be $20.
That's $20 they don't deserve. That's a $20.
I used one of my free tickets from my Cinemark.
I use my AMC too, but that's $20. I don't know if he had AMC or not. That's $20 they don't deserve. Is all I'm saying. And I just think it's one of those movies where I think we're gonna hear afterward. Like I think we're gonna hear about Gaga's album, right? She's created a Harley Quinn album, right, which is a concept album. I feel we're gonna hear about the album, and the album's gonna be better than anything in the movie. And you're gonna be like, why didn't you put this shit in the movie? Like, why you made an entire album as the Harley Quinn character? Why is she not singing rock pop ballads? Like, you could have.
Well,
and then you just have Todd Phillips sitting in the corner going, I wouldn't allow it. It would have made the movie joyful.
I mean, the first movie is like, we've often talked about, it's often been talked about how the first movie riffs on 70s Scorsese movies. So I think they're kind of keeping in that ethos. So that's why a lot of that stuff, like What the World Needs Now, and some of the other songs, nothing stood out to me as being like older than like early 80s. So, of those pop tunes. And that's fine.
And don't cast Gaga. Don't give me hopes that somehow it's going to get enlivened or sparked up by, a good poker face. Fuck. That's sitting right there, Rich. Poker face. Jokers are on playing cards. For fuck's sake, Rich. Jesus Christ. I don't know. I'm glad. I was telling the person I went with last night, I am so glad Todd Phillips' foray into the DC universe is over, and we're headed towards James Gunn and Pierre Seraphim, because I can't handle this dark, moody, Zack Snyder DC bullshit. And it's all like tied together. Like, oh, we could have Elseworlds and we could have this. Can we just make a decent fucking movie for 3 minutes where nobody's like wants to kill themselves as they're leaving the theater? Can we just can we have a Superman that isn't suicidal? Can we have, any of these things, DC? And then, I know you haven't seen it, and this is where I want to talk about. DC is owned by this company named Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is run by.
I've heard of them. Why do you ask?
Why do you ask? Warner Brothers is run by this clown named Zaslav, who's a bigger threat to film than the Joker is. He's a bigger threat to anything. I'm going to talk about a movie that I didn't hate, but I didn't love it either. Really quick, you got your Megalopolis thing in. I'm going to talk about Salem's Lot. Now, I'm going to talk about this. It's from the Conjuring universe, producers, creator, all these things. Here's the problem. and I'm going to give the problems really quick, and then I'm going to talk about what works. Problem is, this movie has been cut to 1 hour and 53 minutes. Rich, if I asked you the other versions of Salem's Lot, what were they? Do you remember what medium they were?
It was a TV miniseries?
They were both miniseries.
Okay.
They were both anywhere. Well, the original Salem's Lot's about 3:30. If you just watch without commercials.
Yeah.
Okay, and the second one was 2 nights. So it's about 2 hours and 40, give or take. So these are the storyline of this movie, of this particular book, requires that you need time with the town to understand why the town succumbing to Barlow would work. Like the idea that all these people are all living in this small town and they all kind of hate each other, and they all kind of like, the pastor drinks and the cop is living on, getting ready to live on a budget and getting ready to get, doesn't want to do anything where he'd be dangerous. It's the first thing that William Sadler, friend of the network, God bless you, William Sadler. Thank God for you, man. He plays the sheriff. And it's the first thing he says. Are you going to do anything dangerous? If you're going to do something dangerous, don't come into town. And so you need time with the town to understand. Like, William Sadler is one of the few characters. Alfred Woodard's doctor is another character, and a couple other people, teacher, where you get to understand what's going on in the town, how the town works. And in 1 hour and 53 minutes, this movie has been trimmed to within an inch of its life. So you don't get any of the time with the townsfolk in order for the Barlow takeover to be drastic. Like, hey, little Timmy's not playing outside anymore. Or, hey, the grocery store shut down today. So what happens is Ben Mears comes to town, and all of it happens within 25 minutes. And then somebody just brings up vampires within 40 minutes. And so it's, I was reading that the director, Gary Dauberman, he talked about a scene that was cut. So originally they were trying to establish the Marston house as being very scary. There's a house in Salem's Lot. It's dark. It's creepy. And there's been allusions to it throughout other Stephen King mythos. And basically they had written a scene from the movie where Ben has a sequence where he has a supernatural sequence in the house as a child. So when somebody says to him, hey, vampires are real, he can go, you know what? I've seen some shit. Here it's not there. They cut the scene. So when the teacher goes, I think it's vampires, Ben just goes, yep. And the only one that doesn't is Alfred Woodard, and that's because she's like the only one of the same people in the town. And then as things start progressing, she just can't get past it. So I will say I like the vampire stuff. I like the effect. There's a really cool effect they do when anybody has full conscience, is like believes in God and picks up a cross, and a vampire's near them, the crosses glow. It is a super cool. It looks great, and it also is it's a great thing for the audience to be able to go, there's nothing on screen, but the cross is glowing. Like, it's a great thing to add to a vampire movie. Vampires look cool. It's a different look. They're like, there's eerie shots of them on buildings. It's great. I loved all the vampire stuff. I loved that they changed the ending from both miniseries and the book. There's a really terrific. The best way I would describe it would be an Howard Hawks set piece for the end of the film. That's really great, and it's a cool concept. And it's a great setup for a bit. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes action movies need like, well, where'd they all go? Or another one like, why is Dana Barrett's apartment, like, why is there a cloud over it? We should go check that out. It's a great setup for a bit. You know what I mean? And bit is an interesting word to use for a vampire flick. But it's something where it's a total derivation from the book and the other miniseries, and it's really creative, and it's about something I really love, and I don't want to give any of it away, but you'll understand when you get there, and it's a cool take. It's an interesting take. It's like something we've never seen. So I was intrigued by it. I thought it was good. I loved the final end sequence. Although they don't do like the endings of the book. The ending of the book and the other miniseries are very centered on Ben and the kid fighting vampires all over the world. Right? This one kind of just ends. Just ends. There's nothing. The movie is like it's never gonna like we're never gonna return to Salem's Lot or anything like out of it. But I will say that it piqued my interest with the creativity, with the. It is not where I thought the movie was going, and I was pleasantly surprised. Like this is original. This is fun. You know what I mean? And that's all you can really ask for in October with scary movies. Are fun. Like that they give you a jolt, and you're like, that was creative. I really like that. I watched another one the other day. I don't know if you probably. I know you don't like horror movies like I do. But I watched this really creative movie called Oddity that I had heard about, I had heard about, and it's this really cool concept of two sisters. One sister's blind. One sister gets murdered horrifically in her house, and her husband basically ends up with another woman very quickly, and the blind girl, owns an oddity shop where it's the needful thing shop or the shop. Do you know what the shop it is, Rich? It's the shop from Friday the 13th, the series.
Ooh, okay.
Where all the shit in the oddity store is possessed, and she is intricately working. Like she's worked with her mom all these years, and because she has some sort of psychic ability because of the blindness, she can sense like anything from an object. And so she's taking the objects off the streets and putting them and so it all ends up, it culminates with her, with the husband and the new girl at their house on a stormy night. And it's interesting and fun and well done. And it has a banger of an ending. And it was just like, joy. That's the other thing. I've been watching movies all week, Rich, these horror movies. And I'm getting joy out of them, and then I went to see Joker, and I'm like, I should have just stayed home and watched something else. I watched another one called. Do you know anything at all about the Creep movie?
The what?
There's a movie called Creep. Do you know anything about it?
No.
I thought about you this week. I thought about you because what were you doing?
You bring up the word creep, and then you say I thought about you. That's insulting. I'm hurt, man.
Okay, so Creep is this Mark Duplass movie. Okay, so it's already in. Yeah, it's got mumblecore issues. But basically, I thought about you not because you're a creep, Rich. Like I wouldn't give that away. But basically, it's about this guy who puts out an ad for somebody to cinematographer to video a day in their life for $1,000 for 8 hours work.
I got a camera.
And the reason I thought of you is because I could see you going $1,000, 8 hours, one day. Great. So he goes to film it, and he finds this guy named Joseph. Joseph is played by Mark Duplass, and basically Mark Duplass tells him, "I have cancer, and have you ever seen the movie My Life?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is intriguing. This is interesting." And Mark Duplass tells him, "I want to do something for my life. My wife is pregnant with our first child, but I have an inoperable brain tumor. So I just want you to film me the whole day so that my son can see what a day in the life of me was like."
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the coolest found footage horror movies I've ever watched. It's smart, and it's funny, and it's creepy as fuck, and it gets creepier and creepier and creepier and creepier as it goes. And it's just, and two things. The reason it just appeared on Netflix. So if anybody's watching, they should definitely watch this. Also, for Netflix reference. The second one is also there. So there's Creep and Creep 2. And then coming in on Shudder in 2 weeks, the reason it piqued my interest, first off, it's Mark Duplass, who I love. And then secondly, they're having a show called The Creep Files or The Creep Tapes or something. So they're making it a weekly show or a show that's going to drop. You got to go. You got to go. It's almost 10 too. But I just
heard a commotion out in the hallway. I wasn't sure if that was my door or not.
Oh my God, that's so scary when we're talking about Creep.
I know. Hold on.
Holy fuck.
Nope, we're good. Sorry,
like,
no one's coming.
Rich, are you okay? So the guy goes to film, and again, it becomes a series of more uncomfortable situations as it progresses, and it hits fever pitch, and then it ends, and it was enjoyable. Oddity and that made my week.
Have you had a chance to catch? I have not. Apartment 7A or whatever that.
Rosemary's Baby. No, it's on the list. I have a list. Also, this is happening. I'm doing JW 31 and 31 this month. So I'm doing 31 new horror films I've never seen. So Creep is something I just watched. So I think it's number 5. But we're only in 4 days. I'm ahead. I'm ahead of schedule. But like I said, like the films I watched thus far. I've done Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, which I remember, but I don't remember seeing. Larry Drake, Charles Durning. It's a 70s horror film from like made for television that just again has a banger ending and also is just creepy. And then I did Oddity, and I did Salem's Lot was today's. So I find joy and don't be Joker. Like that's find something that you like. I'm also gonna watch the new Netflix movie. I'm doing the show, so I had to stop it. But it's What's Underneath or it's What's Inside or whatever. Like this, it's got a weird premise. There's a wedding. Somebody comes to the wedding or the night before the wedding, and is basically a mad inventor, a la Elon Musk or Zuckerberg. And he has a machine that allows people to jump in other people's bodies. And so it's all
which you want to bring to a wedding because, why
who
have
doesn't?
a photo?
Who doesn't want to have like a little drinky poo and maybe some drugs and then also switch bodies with all your best friends that have all the humiliating secrets about your life?
So it's a freaking Friday machine.
I'm going to tell you right now, the movie it doesn't have a lot of people. It doesn't have anybody I've ever seen. It's really inventive. It's really quirky, and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's creating division. Everybody's fighting amongst themselves. It's like yes, fight, and then and you just get the idea that the kid's there to he was like the nerd that got expelled out of college and now has like this magic machine that he calls top secret early, and then everybody's like, oh, we should try it. That's like, why would you do that? What could you possibly do except ruin your life finding out what your best friends actually think of you? I mean in the best possible way. Okay, we are back Monday night, Rich. And I don't have a poster for it, but Monday night, where can people find your stuff? I know you're writing some Film Buff Online stuff.
All my writing can be found at filmbuffonline.com. I'm going to be rolling out a number of reviews over the next week or two. A bunch of stuff that, a few things I've mentioned, a few things I haven't mentioned that I'll be seeing this weekend.
I'm going to say one thing. I know I am not smarter than you, but I know I was happy I corrected one thing in your life. And it's only because I've been obsessed with the Twilight Zone for the last year and a half. And I was like this. I was like, it's the one fucking time you're going to know something.
I had it marked down wrong in my notebook.
Your magic notebook.
Actually, before I move off of the Film Buff, just general Film Buff Online thing, we also last week launched our going to be 9-month-long series of weekly articles on the history of Saturday Night Live. I know on the Mothership Generation Movie series, I've mentioned the Super Secret Writing Project a couple of times.
This is what it is.
And my friend have been working on. for several months now. Last week we kicked it off with why it's just really hard to be a Saturday Night Live fan and historian. This week, Bill put in his first piece, which is on the origins of the show, which, by the way, is a little bit different from how it's depicted in the movie Saturday Night, which is also a great film. I'll have a review of that coming up this week. Next Friday's
show off.
I know. Next Friday's piece is going to be on the other Saturday Night Live series that was debuting around the same time over on ABC. And I've got to go because that's my landlord. I'll be right back.
Well, that's okay. Just go. We're going to end the show here. We'll see you Monday. Right. We're doing it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Stay hungry. Go see some movies. Watch some horror movies. Peace Bye.
Out. Hey, what's up? Yes, I am.